If you love to travel, you are going to need a travel agent. And if you want the best travel agent, you are going to need Boolies Travel. Boolies Travel can help you with any kind of holiday wherever you want to go in the world, taking care of every last detail. From package holidays through to fully customized itineraries where you are completely in control of where you go and what you do. And the best part, there are no charges whatsoever. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. Start your next adventure right now by going to booliestravel.com.
Welcome back to the Jason Ball Travel Podcast. You're joining us at the beginning of Part 2, Episode 4 of our Discover Japan series with Charlie Orr, where we are deep diving into the must-see and do experiences across Japan. Let's jump right back in.
So let's move on to active and adventurous type people who want to get out and see a bit more of Japan in a bit of a different way, like outdoor lovers and things. So what are the standout adventure options that people can do if they go to Japan, if there are any?
There's plenty. There are plenty. Japan has lots of different options to kind of get out of the cities and more into the countryside, I think. And depending on the kind of traveler you are, I'd say climbing. Although, is it climbing? There's Mount Fuji that I think we've got to start off with. And climbing Mount Fuji is an experience. They say that only a fool climbs Mount Fuji twice. And luckily I am that fool. I have climbed it a couple of times. And I don't quite understand because I found value in both of the climbs, but there's some important things to know about climbing Mount Fuji. So there is a climbing season, which is in the summer months. And that's when it's the kind of the most accessible essentially as climbing goes. And it is a bit of a commitment as well. So usually there's two options. You can either start from the very bottom of the mountain, and then you can go all the way to the top, which takes approximately 14 hours, which to be honest, I probably wouldn't recommend a 2-week window because I just think it pulls you out of other parts of Japan a little bit more. But for those that want a shorter experience, you can get the bus to the 5th station, so about halfway up. And that's when the real climb begins. And from there, it takes about 6 hours or so. A really popular thing to do is to climb overnight. And then actually spending a portion of the night in a cabin, actually on the mountain itself. So you can sort of set off and then kind of do a bit of the climb, have a bit of a night stay, and then continue the ascent to the summit to be in time for the sunrise. And seeing the sunrise from the top of Mount Fuji is otherworldly. I'd say it's an incredible experience. Although the accommodation, those huts, they're not going to be luxurious. Then I'd probably argue that they're probably not that comfortable either, but they are warm, and there is a kind of a matting, kind of a bunked bed matting that you can stay on. So if you like to travel in comfort and style, then just be prepared for that one kind of bit to kind of get you up to the top of Mount Fuji. But kind of getting to the top is incredible, and but again, it's only something that you can do during those summer months. In terms of hiking routes, there's Japan itself is 70% plus mountainous and forested. So there's abundant opportunities to get your hiking boots on and get yourself into the country. There's the old samurai Postal Trail, which is an incredible experience. There's lots of different routes that you can take around the Japanese Alps, which is to the north west of Tokyo, and also opportunities to spend a bit of time on your bike as well. So Hida Furukawa, also in the Japanese Alps, is a really nice opportunity, potentially even if you're traveling as a family as well, but obviously anybody can do it, to jump on the bikes and then sort of cycle around the rice paddies all across the area. When we're based over there, I didn't have a driving license, so I spent most of my the main way of getting around for me was riding a bike, which I had. And I had a very specific Japanese bike called a mamachari. And they're kind of quite sturdy, thick bikes with a basket on the front of it. And they're called mamacharis. Usually as well, they've got a slightly kind of lower section. They're more intended for women, because that was so that you can get on and off while you're wearing a dress. And I had one of those as well. So, whenever I was wearing a dress, I wasn't hindered at all. But that was that often. But there's another really good spot as well in terms of cycling, which is the bridges that take you from Shikoku to kind of the south of Hiroshima. And there's like a series of bridges that go across the inland sea, which is the kind of stretch of water that kind of separates the island. And that's usually a 2-day experience, but actually riding across those bridges that go across the sea is phenomenal. And especially if you do it at, sort of in the autumn or the spring, when the weather's really nice and you get these clear crystal blue days, it's amazing. It's such a great experience and just elevates, you getting on just a bike ride. It's more than a bike ride.
You would never know to do that otherwise, would you? You wouldn't have a clue to know to go take that route on a bike otherwise.
It's wild.
I just want to go back and ask a question about something you said there about these different things going on, about the routes. And you said a samurai postal route.
Yeah, so in
my head, were samurai delivering the mail at some point in time? I mean, is that what happened?
No. So it's largely it was the old Postal Trail that you can find in the Japanese Alps, and it sort of goes hand in hand with that samurai history as well. I mean, back in the day, before most of the larger roads were established, so with if you're renting a car, for example, and you're traveling even into the kind of the berries and kind of the countryside, then there will be a fantastic, well-maintained road to get to. But during the samurai age, then the roads were few and far between. So they had to rely on these established pathways, which take you right through the heart of these mountains. And this particular route, you can actually stop off in a series of smaller villages as well. So you can do, I believe there's like a 3-day option and a 5-day option, but you essentially do these kind of very small, again, they're not the most luxurious stays, but they are very, very authentic. But you would stop off in these kind of minshuku, these kind of smaller lodgings along the way, and sort of follow in the samurai footsteps essentially, and see sights that, again, you would miss if you weren't if you didn't know it was there.
Awesome. So we're gonna ask about hot springs at the moment.
Great.
And I know we've spent quite a few other episodes talking about hot springs because they're quite a big deal about it and you love them. So we're just going to talk about them kind of quite quickly, I guess, because we have covered them off before. But it kind of wouldn't be, it'd be remiss of us really if we didn't talk about hot springs as an active kind of adventure to go and do. It's not that active, but you know what I mean, getting out and about. So what do we need to know about hot springs?
So there's, I think, obviously we've this has been brought up before, but just kind of go over these kind of like absolute musts. So a hot spring bath or an onsen in Japan is a place that you would go first and foremost to relax rather than to wash. So when you go into the kind of the shared bathing facilities, which are separated by gender, so the men will have one and the women will have one, then you'll be greeted with a series of kind of lower level shower units. And the practice is that you would go to one of these shower units and completely clean yourself, and then go into the shared communal bath, which takes a few different forms, and that's when you would go in. So a big no-no is just going straight in and then going into the bath, because you need to be clean first, and you also need to be seen to being clean as well. So even if you think, oh no, I had a shower this morning, I'm fine. No, still need to have that mini shower just so you've kind of got that. And then you go into the waters and then you would just relax. And there's a few different varieties that you can come across. So, and it really depends on where you are. So most of the onsens will have that kind of natural water that you'll be experiencing with those kind of different minerals, and some will be inside, some will be outside, some will be slightly larger, some will be slightly smaller, some will feature kind of within kind of a cave complex and things like that. So there's lots of different options to kind of like go bath hopping. And a place that I think I mentioned in a previous episode is Kinosaki Onsen, which is something that most people do. They go after dinner, they put on yukata and then go from bath to bath to bath and just kind of sampling the different waters and then just come out feeling absolutely refreshed. They are, you do go in as it's the day you were born, essentially. You can't wear a swimming costume, it's something to bear in mind. But if you feel apprehensive about sort of having that experience, I would see what you feel, try and give it a go. But if you really don't feel comfortable, then they usually have private facilities, so you can kind of rent a smaller kind of version of the baths and then just have that all to yourself. Also, if you've got tattoos as well, so that was always a large part of I guess the history of baths. So tattoos in Japan had that connection with the Yakuza or the Japanese mob. So they generally tend to sort of permit that. However, things have become less restrictive recently, and most of the onsens that I've been to in the past have allowed people with tattoos to go in. It's really, yeah, unless you're completely inked up, that they might sort of like have a bit of an issue. But actually, if you've got a few tattoos, then most of the places you will be permitted to go to. But again, if you do have tattoos and something you're concerned about, please let Jason know, and then we can recommend loads of onsens that are more tattoo friendly as well. But just a few things to bear in mind.
Awesome. So let's move along now. Look at natural wonders. So we've probably covered, I know at least one of these off this morning, but what are your top 5 must-see natural wonders?
That's a really good question. So yeah, we have ticked off the old Fuji-san, haven't we? But I think with the others, then I think it's the variety that Japan has to it that naturally creates very different natural wonders. So because Japan is very long and very thin, you've got kind of right at the very tip of Hokkaido, then on a clear day you can see Russia, just to kind of really emphasize just how far north it is, to the very southern kind of archipelago of Japan, Okinawa, which is, I'd say, it's often referred to as the Hawaii of Japan, but I think there's always with a pinch of salt, because it doesn't have quite the beach experiences that you might find in Hawaii. It's a bit more adventure and the coastline is a bit rockier. But I think it's just like everything in between just creates something really magical and wondrous. So I would say, thinking about Hokkaido first, some of the mountains that you can visit, particularly for snowboarding and skiing in Japan. So Japan has some world-class powder. So actually going during that sort of that winter period, early spring, to get your skis on, is a really good opportunity. So actually skiing down some of those Japanese mountains is incredible. So that's pretty high up there. I mean, I did a bit of snowboarding both in Hokkaido, but also around Nagano, closer to Tokyo, and the powder is excellent. But in addition to that, I'm not sure if any of your listeners will know that Japan, of course, has the skiing and snowboarding, but it also has its own sand dunes as well. And not many people know about Japan's sand dunes, but those can be found in Tottori, which are kind of in between Kyoto and Hiroshima, that sort of area, sort of north of Shikoku, and it's along the northern the coastline that you can find these huge sand dunes to go and visit. And it's just so strange that you can sort of you can see both in the same country. But another thing as well, and this one's will always forever be my favorite, but it is the mountains and the valleys that you can see in Shikoku, which is where I was based. And I might have said this already, but there have been 2 times in my life where I've seen a natural vista, a landscape, and my jaws just actually dropped. One of which was the first time I saw the Lake District, which blew me away. But the second time was seeing the Shikoku Mountains for the first time. So a traditional route is to go kind of from the mainland across the bridge via train, and that's when you kind of get the limited express trains that take you through the heart of the island, and the train skirts along the valleys. So you look down and you see these crystal clear waters. The mountains are just absolutely full of kind of dense life and growth, and it just feels completely unspoiled. So actually losing yourself in the mountains of Shikoku is an absolute must for me as well. And then, I mean, volcanoes is something that Japan's incredibly well known for as well, particularly in the southern island of Kyushu. where you can see them from a helicopter. Actually, you can do a helicopter ride across kind of like all around these volcanoes and seeing this intense natural landscape. But another is the dormant volcanoes, I might stress, that you'll find in Hokkaido again. So during the winter months, Hokkaido is largely inaccessible unless you're going skiing or snowboarding where there's established routes. But for the most of the island, a lot of the roads close down due to the snowfall. So we wouldn't recommend people to travel to Hokkaido during the winter months by themselves. However, luckily, we have put together a small group tour led by one of our insiders that could take people right into the heart of Hokkaido midwinter across a safe passage and actually see these incredible volcanoes, dormant volcanoes, at this insane time of year, which is truly, truly amazing.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Let's look at some modern and quirky things then. So, yeah, on the modern side, Japan offers like unique pop culture experiences. You've mentioned anime, or you kind of mentioned
Manga.
Haven't you,
Yeah.
Manga. Sorry, yeah, manga. I should know it because my son loves manga. And you've got like gaming themed cafes, and there's so much to kind of go and do on a different kind of scale. So, which of these should first timers really think about kind of visiting?
I see for kind of deep diving into pop culture is always something that's going to be really close to my heart. I am a bit of a geek when it comes to this kind of side of Japanese culture.
Do
And
you use like the dancing machines?
no. Yeah, my wife was actually very good at, I think, DDR, Dance Revolution. She was pretty hard fun. I was more of the button bashy arcade gamer, sort of playing Street Fighter and stuff like that. But a place that I would really recommend for anybody that's interested in finding out more about this side of Japan would be to do this potentially in Tokyo, and specifically a place called Akihabara. Now, Akihabara has a pretty interesting history. So back in the 50s, kind of just before the rise of like the economic boom, the economic miracle in Japan, it was the home for kind of more tech happening at that time. So it was really popular for the kind of the latest kind of technology happening at that time. So eventually it was sort of a place where you go to pick up your VCRs when TVs were becoming more prevalent, fridges, stereos, that sort of thing. And so it had this history with becoming a bit of a tech hub. Nowadays, that's now transformed and leaned more heavily into the pop culture side of things. So it is now the mecca of anime, manga, video games, and all sorts of different shops that cater to all of this. So if you love anime and manga, this is the place to go. If you would like to kind of get a small statuette of your favorite characters, go here. If you want to get the latest edition of the most recent anime or manga that's just coming up from the shelves, that's the place you go. And for the retro game fans, this is a bit of a heaven. So I went on a research trip, let's call it that, a couple of weeks ago, where I sort of like disappeared from the main group and then dived straight into Akihabara just to see what the retro scene was like. And there was one shop called Super Potato, which is really unassuming. So you won't see this as a brightly lit shop in Akihabara. The place itself is a bit of a labyrinth, so it's always good to have a bit of guidance to know where to go. But Super Potato was down this kind of unassuming alley with a sign on it, and then there was a very small elevator that could fit one grown man. Essentially, it wasn't huge, and then it just had like this kind of 3 stickers on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor just saying Super Potato, and you go to the 3rd, and then it's just this cavern of old video games and tech. So you've got everything from old Ataris to Commodore 64s, loads of refurbished Nintendo SNESes, Super Nintendo Entertainment Systems, and they're all in working order as well. And you can buy the cartridges, and and you can essentially kind of get this little bit of history. For not that much. It's only about I think one of them was 3,000 yen, which is about £15 for a console. So if you're a big fan of retro game collecting, and then they had games galore. They had countless games tucked away. So you can get all of kind of your favorite, old Nintendo, Mario, Zelda, that sort of thing, for cheap as well. So actually retro game hunting in Japan, if you're a fan, I would block out an entire day for that, because you can just get kind of lost in the best possible way. But Akihabara is the place to go for that side of things.
So what kind of futuristic experiences stand out the most to visitors, do you think?
Futuristic experiences. I mean, it's an interesting question. I'd say that there's a variety of different things, but the one that always comes first and foremost in my mind is the TeamLab Borderless exhibit, which is in also in Tokyo. And this is an art exhibit. It's an interactive art exhibit where you go in, and then if all the lights were switched off, essentially it would just be this kind of empty series of rooms that are kind of black floors, black ceilings, and everything. But then they cascade light onto everything, and it looks incredible. So a lot of these lights are kind of moving images. So you'll see fish kind of like swimming around your feet. There'll be a large waterfall, good kind of water kind of crashing down over this kind of like boulder that looks incredible. And the colors are just explosive. They've actually, I believe it was a temporary exhibit initially, but then just due to its popularity, they have made it now permanent. And I believe they've actually opened up a few more borderless exhibits. So actually seeing something like that in Tokyo is a real firm favorite of mine, just because it just feels like an interactive art exhibit where you can actually kind of get lost in a painting. It's wild.
Awesome. Let's look at things that are unique and memorable. I think some of those really are that we've just talked about. But what's an experience you've had in Japan that I think every traveller should try at least once?
Ooh, so I mean, going back to the Maiko, I think is something that always hold in my heart. I think that was really cool. But another one that I would love to mention is doing a taiko drum performance, or like a lesson essentially. So taiko is the Japanese drums where you've got this huge barrel and then you've got the two kind of drumsticks. But there's so much energy to it. And luckily I was able to take part in this actually just a couple of weeks ago. And you've got the instructor and they're teaching you how to play one of the songs, and it's usually done as a collective. So there were a group of 12, 15 of us or so. And we're all in a line. They had the drums in front of us. They were sort of taught that. And there's particular movements that you can do, and is tied in with with Japanese culture. So if you go to the festivals that we were talking about before, then chances are they will have a taiko performance taking place somewhere, and you can kind of feel the vibration of these huge drums kind of echoing through in the rhythm of this. And actually having a go yourself and learning just how physically knackering it is one thing, but also just the effect of it. And it is such a cool memorable experience. Actually everybody in the group said that was the highlight of their trip, actually kind of getting stuck in. This is so far removed from a passive experience as you can be, and they just wanted more. So I think actually a few members of that group have actually sought out regional UK taiko chapters so they can kind of keep the learning going. Wow. But they can always say that they first picked up their sticks in Kyoto, which is quite cool.
Absolutely amazing. Are there any experiences that are often overlooked but end up being the highlights for people? And that's probably one thing that you just kind of spoke about one then. But is there any kind of more mainstream that people would, maybe turn away from? And
I think so. I think potentially. I mean, this sounds a bit strange at first, but I would say gardens. And most unless you're a garden fan. And you'd be like, we love gardens. We love to see Japanese gardens. We want to see the kind of the Zen ones, and we want to see like everything. Then they'll be like, great, okay, no worries. We'll absolutely fill your itinerary. Some of the most incredible gardens that you'll ever see. But actually, even if you don't go with that in mind, and if you just want to sort of have a sampling plate of everything that Japan has to offer, I think some of the gardens that they've got in places like Tokyo, which although it is this incredibly developed metropolitan city, has quiet areas where these incredible gardens are kind of tucked away, that even if you're not a big garden fanatic, then actually going there, you can't help but be impressed. And there was one in particular that I'll find the information for you so you can share with your listeners. But essentially, there were 6 or 7 different famous landscapes that all across Japan, whether that's a well-known coastline or Mount Fuji, which they then recreated within this small garden area. So it was a way for the higher ups of Japanese society at the time to do a tour across Japan without really leaving their own city, so they could get the same effect as seeing these places for themselves without having to travel. And that was wild. It was so cool to see. So something like that. I think that obviously it's not overlooked by garden fans because that will be in their itinerary, but it's often overlooked by people that not necessarily be on the top of their list of things to do, but when they've kind of gone to them, they just feel like, that was incredible. I'm so glad that we did that.
People like me. I didn't think you were going to say gardens, and you said, I thought, oh, okay, all right, yeah. Yeah, so looking now at some practical advice for planning trips, and people want to try and get away, and there's loads of different ways of doing things, and there's search here, search there, but I mean, there's so much to do, isn't there? And it's so kind of itemized to different people as well. So, you know, kind of how do people make sure they get the right balance of culture, the right balance of active, the modern experiences, you know, without kind of being overwhelmed and overrushed by it all?
I think that's the secret ingredient, really, isn't it? It's juggling, making sure that you're making the most of every opportunity, especially given the kind of the commitment to get to Japan, because as we talked about previously, it's going to take 14 hours direct to get to Japan. So you do really want to make sure that you are getting the most out of your time in the country. But again, balancing it and making sure that you're not barreling towards burning out is really crucial. And I think this is exactly where it comes. Well, we can help out essentially. So reach out to Jason and essentially with that travel specialist, then you are able to negotiate that and then talk about your absolute musts and how we can kind of leverage that into a really succinct trip that's tailor-made for you. So let's say, as an example, starting off in Japan, and of course it's going to be Tokyo for maybe 3 nights or so. It's going to be a bit of a whirlwind, but it's important to kind of make sure that you're taking that time to then take a small break after Tokyo. Maybe that's the time to do the onsen, the hot spring bath, and relax for a couple of days before moving on to your next big city where you just want to cram everything in. So it's just sort of giving you those moments to catch your breath, really, because there is that sort of that need to just see everything. So waking up before the dawn and then just kind of being on your feet throughout all the day, just because there's so much to see and do. But it is important to kind of take a breather, take a step back, but also do something that's just as culturally relevant. I mean, going back to the onsen again, that is an experience that you can't miss in Japan. And luckily enough, it's going to be that time that you can also catch your breath and make sure that you're not missing anything. So it's balancing the active things with the more relaxing elements to the eating experiences, and just making sure that everything flows together where you're not feeling worn out, essentially, but you're still making the most of every second, because there's enough variety where that balance can happen. But again, eating in the expertise from Jason is your best bet.
Yeah, you're going to really need to understand it. I mean, you've got family travelers. They're going to be needing a bit of a different priority on things, especially depending on the age of the family.
Oh, absolutely.
Couples are going to have different priorities. Solos are going to have different priorities. So yeah, it's really difficult to give advice to people to say, do this or do that to, get the best balanced trip, because it's just so totally unique.
Every situation is going to be different. I mean, like you say, I mean, families will have different priorities from like a honeymoon couple, and then if you're traveling with children, or if you're traveling with anybody that might be neurodiverse, then it's really important to kind of let us know, so then we can make sure that everything is completely bespoke to them. I mean, we won't be able to say, this is the one way that you do Japan, because there isn't just one way. There's going to be countless ways, and countless additional ways on top of that, depending on the individual that's going and all the needs of those travelers and those people traveling. So I think that's where it's really important as a next step to kind of like discuss your needs with us, and then we can make sure that you're providing the best experience that's right for you So there's not like going into that again, it's not the best experience of Japan that providing you. It's your best experience of Japan. It's incredibly personalized.
Yeah, and as we've been talking through these episodes, and there's still some more to come, but as we've been talking through them, um, I keep seeing coming up on my phone feeds and things about AI planning software. So plan all your holiday on the AI, and they can take care of all of it for you. But knowing AI kind of the way that we do, and we all use ChatGPT for certain things and certain tasks, and we'll use video creation. It's so difficult to get to understand the specifics of people, what each individual kind of needs, and those different priorities. And I've tried kind of playing about with it, and it'll give you kind of a nice lineup of different things to do, but it's not touching or doesn't ask half of the questions that you come to ask when you talk to a travel professional. It just doesn't cover them off. It doesn't get anywhere near it. So it can't plan and allow for all those little idiosyncrasies of people that we've already talked about, the different types of travellers, and the different types of needs, and still balancing out with the must-do things. And it might take into account seasonal activities and those types of things, but it just can't bring them all together in the same way that a travel pro can. I think it's still a mile off before it can do that yet.
I think we are quite a way off. I think it's able to provide, I'd say, a high-level overview of certain areas and certain things to do. I mean, strangely, I went for a drink with a friend of mine that is planning their own trip to Japan for next year. And before we met, then they gave me this kind of laundry list, essentially, of things to do, and this itinerary that they had created through AI, and it needed quite a bit of unpicking. And sort of as we talked through what had been presented, it felt like a nice starting point, but it felt like a lot of corrections still needed to be made, especially taking in their personal preferences and what they were hoping to get. And AI, I think, largely will be kind of putting out the same answers for everybody. And again, this kind of feeds into more of, I mean, I think we might have mentioned it before, but last year there were nearly 50 million visitors to Japan, and 80%, so 4 out of 5 of them, only go to the top 10 destinations. And chances are this AI will be recommending these top 10 destinations because those are going to be the ones that are going to be the top of every search history. So that's where they're sort of going to be feeding that. It's only going to be sort of creating that snowball effect of sending more travelers to these over-visited destinations, and then lowering the kind of the unique experiences that you could really have. So speaking with travel professionals and kind of getting away from those top 10 destinations to really find something unique, and again something that's tailored to you. It's so crucial to speak to a travel specialist, at least currently, in the shape that AI is because it does need a lot of unpicking, and it only, like you say, asks half the questions, if that, to get the most out of your time.
Yeah, it can't pick up on emotion. It can't pick up on the little nuances that, have a conversation with somebody, and you're planning out a trip and what's important to you, and conversations evolve, as ours have, all the way through these whole episodes. If you pick up on a tiny little thing, and it just means something different to different people, how they say it and what they say, and it means that you actually influence a trip in a different manner, or you go back and ask clarifying questions about something, which I never get of AI. Whenever I use it, I never get those clarifying questions, and you can ask it to. You can pre-do things on different platforms, but it just doesn't relate that into how important something is for somebody, and that emotional link and connection that somebody has because of something. I don't know, their family did, or an old family connect, or something. They just can't put the pieces together very well. So so that's my little bit anyway. I think it's still a mile off yet, and this is one of those places where there's so many different aspects to it, sides to it, that you really need to get a bit of help to plan it through, or you're spending a lot of money and you're just not kind of making the most of that trip.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and that's kind of a great point. I think is you're not making the most of your time there, and that's feels like a cried.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
So everybody, that is the end of episode 4, where we've been looking at the experiences across Japan. And there are so many more experiences to go and do. And as you've already got from the flavour of our conversation so far, is it really depends what's important to you, and we can pick things out because there's tons of stuff. We just can't talk about it. We try and cram it into an hour. There's just so much more to talk about. So make sure when you do get in contact, you have a little list available of the things that are most important to you. So still to come up is going to be our next episode. We're going to be looking at seasons across Japan, what it means, kind of how it differs in different areas of Japan, and everything you need to know about seasons. In the final episode of this mini-series is then going to be looking for people who want to go back to Japan and revisits, and also small group tours, and kind of everything you need to know with putting those together. So thanks a lot for joining us. Again, if you want to get out to Japan and you keep hearing more and more of this amazing stuff that Charlie just keeps on bringing to us in every episode, please get in contact. You can find me at booliestravel.com, all over Facebook, Instagram, wherever it is you want to look, you'll find me there. Please get in contact, and I would absolutely love to make your dream trip to Japan come true. Thank you, and bye for now.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.